Hey there, and today I'm going to take this piece of wood and turn it into a spoon. Right now what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be taking this down from having the bark and having all of this excess wood on there, and I'm going to be bringing it down so that the profile from this side looks like a diamond. So covering off this side, that side, pretty much leaving this roughly the same. Obviously this side needs to be smoothed out a little bit, whereas this side is pretty much okay. So that is the first step in making a spoon, getting this down to a diamond. So I have taken the profile down to that diamond shape, and now the reason why I take it down to this diamond shape is so that I can really figure out what I want to do with it, and I'm not going to end up carving away spots that I needed later. So what I mean by that is the shape of the spoon is going to be relatively swooped, and that point, that bend in the spoon, we refer to it as the crank of the spoon. And having this diamond shape lets me have excess wood at the front while being able to take away wood in the middle of the bowl. And having these sides be a little bit lower and still relatively thick. I'm not taking them down to really thin edges. I'm not trying to make a knife blade out of them. It lets me carve in while still keeping the shape, the support, the structure of the spoon bowl itself. Otherwise, if I were to say have a triangle and I was working down, every time I draw my design on and I work to that edge, if I carve a little bit too much, that side goes down. And it's going to slowly go down, and if I wanted to have a curve in the bowl of the spoon, then as I carve down, the entire bowl would start to thin out. And that isn't something that you want, because as you draw your design on, you want that to really be the shape that you can go for and obtain. So having these sides be relatively robust, you don't have to make them super thick because then you have excess wood you have to take off later. But having them be a little bit thicker lets you have that room to work through. So my next step in this process is to take a pencil and draw on the design that I want to put into the spoon, and I'm back. So with this, I've drawn on my design. You can see it right here. Then with this, all I do is take a pencil, and you want a relatively soft pencil. If you don't know what a soft pencil is, pencils range from H to B. So H are the hardest. 8H is around the hardest you can get, and then 8B is around the softest you can get. So you want something in the range of a 5B to an 8B. Depending upon the brand is depending upon how soft it's going to be. So go for something around a 6B. 6Bs are a relatively safe bet. Then what that does is it allows you to get a black line that's very visible and relatively easy to apply without having to put on a lot of work. You can use your regular number 2 pencil, that's an HB pencil, and draw your lines on, and it's just going to be a little bit lighter. That's the only real difference. But with these softer pencils, it's really easy to get those marks, and you can see them. After you've decided on the shape and style of the spoon, then your next step is to carve away all the excess. So this stage is going to be all the axe carving, figuring out what you want to take away. So I'm going to thin out the spoon on the sides first, then I'm going to take the back down, and I'm going to take the front down. After that, what I do is carve out the middle. The reason why I have this line here is because that's where the deepest part of my bowl is going to be. So I'm going to take my axe, come in from the top, carve that down, and that's why, once again, that's why I have these sides of this diamond lower. So I can carve down while still keeping the tip of the bowl higher. So I carve in from here, carve back, carve down, and this entire length is going to be the same depth as say this is. So this is going to have a sharper angle, and this is going to have a slower angle. So when you're holding your spoon, this comes in and then that goes out. And it makes it so that it holds liquids and holds your food at an easier angle for you. So now I'm going to get to the hatchet work, and I'll be right back with an end result for that part. Here's where I'm at now. What I've done is I've taken my hatchet and I've worked down the sides so that the shape has come to the outside of where the pencil marks are. I don't generally carve on the inside or through the pencil marks just because my pencil marks are more of a ballpark. They're not the exact shape that I may or may not want. Sometimes it's hard to get the exact right shape when things are tapered on either side. So that's why I carved the outside of the pencil marks. Next, as I've carved in, I carved down the sides, carved around here, then I carved on the inside of the neck while everything was still thick, just so that I didn't accidentally break through the neck of the bowl. This is one of the weakest spots in your spoon, and you want to make sure that you're protecting it, especially when you're coming down with a hatchet straight at the weakest point. And it's the most crucial point as well. After all of the wood was taken away from those areas, carved down into here and started to give myself that quintessential spoon shape, carving along the back and thinning out both of those as well. So here's the general idea of where you want to be at this stage. And now is when you're going to take your knife, and what I like to do is I like to take my knife and smooth up everything. Sometimes I will redraw in this area so that I know exactly where I need to bring my knife to, and I will shore up all the edges to make sure that I know exactly where I'm going to go from there. And if something is crooked at this stage from the rough hatchet marks, then I can shore those up and progress onward with an even flow. So here's this idea right now. I'll come back after everything has been shored up and I'll show you what it looks like then. Continuing with the design, I have smoothed out the sides and it has a rough shape of a spoon from the front perspective. On the side it's still very bulky and thick, but what this allows me to do is see where the shape of the spoon is and start to get the angles and adjustments that I'm going to need to make as I move forward. Along with this, I look down the front of the spoon to see which side is higher or lower, and that's going to be my next step. Start to adjust these areas. I'm going to also get to the hook knife stage where I start to hollow out the bowl, and I'm going to thin out the handle significantly. Those are the areas that I'm going to next, and I do them all at the same time. It's not carve out the inside of the bowl, round out the back, then work on the handle. At this stage, I still want to get an overall feel for everything moving forward. So I will thin out the bowl a bit, work on the outside of the edge of that, work on the handle a bit, and move it all together. So I will be back after that happens, and then there's really only one more step after that, and that's just finishing everything up. So here is a closer example, a closer view of this at this stage, and we'll see where it all goes to after that. So I've finished the next stage, and that is the rough finishing stage. What that really entails is scooping out the inside with a hook knife. I use my Tukacam knife because it takes away the most amount of material. Then I'm thinning out and refining the handle and everything like that. Handle is really thin over here. I took the finial off because I didn't like that in the end. I smoothed out the inside of the bowl by using my straight blade and carving in and moving the wood and removing it from there. Next, I pulled the spoon edge back to where my pencil line was, and then even beyond that, because that's where the shape started to look best. A lot of the times when I'm drawing them on, one shoulder ends up being higher than the other, and I just round those out and smooth them out to make sure that they look the way that they're supposed to and pleasing to my eye. That's the only thing I can make sure that they do, pleasing to my eye. And I don't have anybody else's eyes, so I can't make it pleasing to everybody's eyes. Next step is the finishing stages. So as I said, I used the Tukacam on the inside. Now I'm going to take my regular hook knife and smooth that out to make it really easy to fit in the mouth and to take away this thick edge that's around. Then I'm also going to thin out the back over here because it's these two big sharp edges and corners. And what I really want there is the neck to continue out into the deepest part of the bowl. And these are going to help support that. And they're going to be carved in and made much thinner. I want the back of the spoon to be roughly the same thickness as the front of the spoon. And that's really what I'm going for. As for finishing up anything on the handle, I'm just looking to make it smooth and comfortable in the hand. That means rounding out these corners and edges on the top and just making sure that I don't have one side too angled than the other. Say like one side is thicker than the other, that'll make the spoon itself crooked when it sits in your hand. So those are the next steps, and I will see you once those are done. And it's finished. So with this last step, I was really focusing on making sure that all the small little details were focused on and that I smoothed it out and made it comfortable in the hand. Now, when it comes to making it comfortable in the hand, if you're right hand dominant, you're going to often hold it in your right hand only. However, if you want to make it a spoon that's usable by anybody, it's also really important to hold it in your left hand. And make sure that it feels comfortable in both. Sometimes it'll be really comfortable in your right and very uncomfortable in your left. And that's when it comes down to making sure that you are feeling the spoon, looking at it from all angles, flipping it over, and really focusing in on those smaller details. So, as I was saying before, I used the hook knife and I carved out the inside of the bowl to make it smoother and to make the rim that was on the outside significantly smaller. I have thinned out the handle quite much. I left a little bit of a bump on the end, and what that does is it just makes it a lot easier to fall into the right spot in your hand. If you are not looking at your spoon and you're sliding your thumb up the back, you will feel this little bump on the end, and that means, hey, you're at the end of your spoon, stop there. Otherwise, theoretically, you can just slide off the back and you're like, oh no, my spoon, I was at the end, I didn't know. So it's just a little old school trick that spoon makers have been doing for a while that lets you know that that's the end of your spoon and that's the best spot to hold it, really. The last few little things are just making sure that as you rub your fingers around, you feel the edges. If there's anything that catches, clean those up. Make sure the edges are rounded and not too sharp, because that's super uncomfortable when you're trying to eat with them. And the last step after this is all done is to oil it. I use a simple flaxseed oil. I got it at the organic food store around the corner. And really you can use any drying oil. Those work really well. Walnut oil, linseed oil, but not things like olive oil. Though olive oil doesn't fully dry, so it can go rancid. So if you're storing your spoon for a very long time, it's very bad, but if you wash your spoons regularly, it doesn't necessarily cause trouble. That's why you can use cooking spoons over and over again, and the oil from there you're going to be cooking with olive oil isn't necessarily going to be bad for the spoon. So I hope this was a helpful video, and I will be making more of these along this lines for a little bit at least, and see how this goes. So if you like the video, like it below and comment. And if you want to see more of these, subscribe to more of my videos. And if you like this, just check me out on Instagram, Facebook, or my website at Glenn P. Art. And I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.